Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Spellbinder's report on the unfiltered news from the Reality Zone, compiled by G. Edward Griffin. This is for November 26th through December 2nd, 2011. Here's the cartoon this week. Comic strip. It's time we read the owner's manual. The USS Constitution as they go off the edge. Meanwhile, on to the articles. Headlines. And we start with Russia. The country's only independent election watchdog is harassed by the ruling party. State-run TV channel claims group is working for the U.S. and attempting to interfere with the upcoming elections. Guardian. December 2nd. Gene patenting may cause humans to become the private property of corporations that hold patents. Really? Natural Society. December 2nd. Yes, they got blood since 1970 and they're using that as a geno pool for their own experiments. If you need a certain gene therapy, you'll have to pay for it if you're born after 1970 to use your own genes. Video. Stuart Rhodes of Oath Keepers says that the National Defense Authorization Act is pure treason and will subject civilians to military law. Oath Keepers, December 1st. Drug maker GlaxoSmithKline faces fines of $3 billion for illegal and unethical marketing of its drugs. Before you shout hurrah, consider the company is worth $110 billion, and this fine is but a tiny part of the profits made from the fraud, so there is no reason for the company to change what it has been doing. Drug companies will continue to commit fraud and produce harmful drugs until their executives are personally held responsible and either pay the fines themselves or are sent to prison. Meanwhile, the game continues in which the fines are a minor cost of doing business, and the public is misled in believing that the government is cracking down. Mercola, December 1st. And it's true. Perchlorate, an ingredient of rocket fuel, is a hazard to health because it is a powerful endocrine disruptor. It has widely polluted water systems, crops, and animals products, and has been found in virtually all humans that have been tested for it. Activist Post, December 1st. Audio. Economic forecaster Joe Salente tells of being robbed by the MF Global, which changed his trading records and stowed his investment and has gone unpunished. Calente says an economic 9/11 such as a bank holiday is coming soon. Be prepared for an angry language. YouTube, November 30th. British government plans to raid the Public Workers Pension Fund to stimulate the economy with construction projects. You know how it is. Collectivists never stop until they have every last penny they can extract from taxpayers. A prosperous economy comes from enterprise of free people, not from compulsive political programs of the state. New American, November 30th. Video. The Senate close to passing the National Defense Authorization Act that allows the President to lock U.S. citizens away indefinitely without a trial. Find out who may be considered a terrorist. It might even be you. YouTube, November 29th. I heard they passed that with a majority vote. So be ready for a police state in America. U.S. Senator Lieberman continues his push for a flag button so internet users can apply for terrorist flag to any website or blog they think is critical of political leaders, or even if they just don't like it. You know how that is. The poop hits the fan plan, November 29th. Iran, mysterious explosion hits nuclear facility, Jerusalem Post, November 29th. Russia's activities early warning radar system in Western Europe in response to U.S. plans for a missile shield in Europe. It is clear that Russia does not believe that the U.S. installation is entirely for defense. BBC, November 29th. UK, new study shows that half of the 500,000 elderly healthcare patients examined are extremely unhappy with government Medicare. Some even would prefer death over having it. CFP, November 29th. 12-year-old music prodigy. Click to be amazed. China may have 3,000 miles of underground tunnels harboring large number of nuclear weapons it is concealing from the West. We do not know if this is true, but we do know that it would be consistent with China's long-term military strategy, which advocates pre-exemptive strikes and still considers the United States to be enemy number one. Heritage, posted November 29th. Pakistan says the recent NATO airstrike that killed 24 of their soldiers was deliberate. In response, Pakistan has cut off NATO supply route and ordered the evacuation of CIA drone airbase. Independent, November 29th. Iranian protesters stormed the UK embassy in anger over sanctions against Iran banks and oil sales. The sanctions approved by the US and EU are said to be a means to throw off Iran's development of nuclear weapons. Bloomberg, November 29th. U.S. federal judge rejects Citigroup settlement with the SEC for $285 million because SEC did not attempt to prove bank fraud. This is the custom in such cases, which has the effect of protecting banks from being sued by investors. SEC claims it does not have enough funding to prosecute for fraud. Anyone believe that? New York Times, November 28th. U.S. FDA allows reconditioning and repackaging of food at a surprisingly high level of mold and contamination. Daily Mail, November 28th. U.S. In 2008, the Federal Reserve secretly gave trillions to banks in emergency loans at below market rates, including $1.2 trillion in just one day. This was the same period when the heads of those banks were assuring that the public that they were financially sound. ABC News, November 28th. A video. Idaho State Representative Phil Hart explains how the federal government backed down after he introduced legislation to declare a state of emergency, which would have authorized the use of local police power to prevent federal government from interfering in the wildlife management of the state. This is significant because it may become a model for similar exercise of state rights in other fields as well. A good thing. Morph City, November 28th. Let's shut down the Fed. Monsanto says it wants to dominate the vegetable and food crop industry worldwide with its genetically modified versions, and it intends to do this within months or years instead of decades. This is not really news for those who have followed Monsanto's policies in the past, but it is chilling to see how they are now so open and confident of their goals. Columbus Dispatch, November 28th. Gulf of Mexico. The first live dolphin has been found since BP oil spill over a year ago, but it is sick. Dolphins are the closest marine animals to humans, and their deaths have been kept out of the mainstream news. Why, you may ask? To allow the Coexit massacre to fade from public discussion. The Examiner, November 27th. UK, MMR triple vaccine caused a baby to go deaf in one ear, but she was refused compensation by the government because the disability wasn't serious enough. The real story here is not that damages should have been paid, but that 1. Vaccines cause damage, 2. The vaccine maker should pay damages, not the taxpayers. Nemest, November 28th. Scientists admit that they developed flu virus that could wipe out the human race. Now they want to publish how they did it. Daily Mail, November 26th. That's known as narcissism in a way. They want to brag about their way of killing off the human race. That's madness. Australia, patients are told they will lose over $2,000 in benefits if they refuse to vaccinate their children. The object is to implement the program without making it mandatory by law. Natural Society, again, November 26th. Suffolk County, New York, will hold a public hearing on the initiative to ban chemtrails. Global Research, November 26th. Video. Navajo Reservation in Arizona, Utah was mined for uranium for decades. When the mining stopped, no one cleaned up the toxic remains, resulting in cancer and disease of the Navajo population. YouTube posted December 2nd. We invite readers' comments on this story. Who is responsible for the solution? The government? The mining companies? The inhabitants themselves? All three? Send comments here. U.S. Newt Gingrich's record shows that he is a political chameleon who speaks in defense of the Constitution but is quick to support unconstitutional policies, especially when he is enriched by them. Remember Fannie Mae and Mac, he got paid as a counselor. What else would one expect from a member of the CFR? Yes, he is a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. December 2nd. Yahoo. Hedge fund insider explains that hedge funds enabled very wealthy people to operate beyond regulatory restraints and leverage their money 15 times and receive massive tax breaks. His advice to all other investors: get out of the market and stay out. In the long run, you can't compete with stacked deck. Zero hedge. Video. Ron Paul comments on the recent action of the Federal Reserve in which it lowered its interest rates to less than 1% for European bank loans and is swapping U.S. dollars for European currency. Injecting more fiat money into Europe will only make the inevitable collapse worse and will further destroy the U.S. economy. Wise words. Ron Paul, November 30th. U.S. Local police doctrine now dictates that public protests be treated as security threats. That means peaceful demonstrators will be treated like prison riots. The doctrine allows wide latitude of abuse against citizens. If you want to understand why police brutality is on the rise, study this analysis carefully. Lou Rockwell, November 29th. Video. Judge Neopano and Rand Paul discussed the unconstitutional bill now being considered by Congress and widely supported by both Republicans and Democrats that would strip American citizens of their rights to due process. If you don't like what the politicians are doing, you could be classified as a terrorist or enemy combatant and spend the rest of your life in a military prison. This is deadly serious, people. YouTube, November 29th. North Dakota initiative to abolish all property taxes revolutionary. It will give citizens more control over government spending and hopefully will become a model for other states. Activist post, November 29th. Video. Economics professor Thomas Rossetti explains that production drives economics, not spending. Today, production is overburdened by regulation and taxes because the government refused to cut spending. Their economies will fail. Each country is entrenched with the debts of other countries, so the crisis is contagious. More money creation and inflation are inevitable. Gold money, November 25th. And that's the end of the news for this week. And here's a great photo of the week. Squirrel taking picture. Interesting. Until next time, it's a spellbinder saying be good or be good at it. And be aware that America has now become a police state because of the bill 1867, I think it is, was passed. And it's not a good thing. As in this article in the New American with Rand Paul speaking about this, Senate passes controversial defense bill. And it was passed by 93-7, virtually stated that all of the United States may be considered a battlefield, and therefore the American military is permitted to indefinitely detain any American perceived to be a threat. I'll have a link to this and others. Until next time, good day.